My name's Emily Carter. I'm 29, live in Central Ohio, and until very recently, I thought my biggest flaw was being a little too much for my family. You know, the kind of girl who asks uncomfortable questions, shows up to Thanksgiving with wine instead of pies, and doesn't wear pastels. But apparently, I'm worse than that. Apparently, I'm so visually offensive, emotionally unpredictable, and socially undesirable that I wasn't even worthy of being seen at my own sister's wedding. Let me explain. My younger sister, Lauren, is the kind of woman Pinterest would create if it had a uterus. Blonde, soft-voiced, obsessed with monograms and dry shampoo. She could walk into a Denny's and walk out with a modeling contract. I say that with no sarcasm. She's objectively beautiful, and her whole life has reflected that. Meanwhile, I've been the weird one since third grade when I cried because the classroom hamster died and my parents told me, "Don't be dramatic, Emily, it's a rodent." The dynamic hasn't changed much in 2 decades. Lauren got engaged last year to a guy named Jason Montgomery, who's the human equivalent of a trust fund trying to cosplay as a personality. The kind of man who calls servers chief and starts sentences with, "Well, actually, but hey, he's got money." Or at least, his family does. And in my parents' world, that's the metric. At first, I was in the wedding. Maid of honor, even. I helped plan. I went to the tastings. I ordered a $280 blush satin dress that made me look like a raw pork chop. And then, 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a phone call. Not from Lauren. No. That would require spine and guilt. It came from our mother. I was standing in the Kroger parking lot holding a frozen pizza and a bottle of Malbec when her name lit up my phone. She didn't waste time. "Emily, honey, we need to talk about the wedding." My stomach sank. You know that feeling you get when someone calls and says, "Are you sitting down?" and you realize your life's about to do a backflip into garbage? That was me, holding a DiGiorno. "The Montgomerys are particular," she said. "They want a specific guest list. Controlled optics. Elegant image." And I swear to God, this woman actually said, "It's not that you're not invited per SE. It's just that it's best for everyone if you're not present. For appearances. Not invited per SE." Like I was being excommunicated from the guest list, but spiritually included. I laughed. Out loud. Not a sane laugh, either. A wheeze. A bark. "Are you telling me I'm not welcome at my own sister's wedding?" "It's not personal, Emily. You know how you can be strong. I pay taxes. I own a blender. I'm not a circus act." But she was already off to the next point. "We'll reimburse you for the dress." Reimburse me. Like they'd canceled a babysitting shift. I hung up without another word, sat in my car, and let the Malbec warm on the seat beside me. I stared out at the blurred parking lot lights and thought, this is the part where a normal person cries. But I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I thought, they think this is the end of it. That I'll disappear quietly. They're wrong. Oh, God, they were so wrong. I didn't cry that night. Not when I got home. Not even when I pulled that ugly bridesmaid dress out of the closet and laid it across my bed like a corpse. I stared at it for a while, creased, soft, offensively pink, and felt nothing. Which is worse than crying, honestly. I poured myself the now room temperature Malbec and did what any normal, psychologically sound person would do after being told they weren't curated enough for their own sister's wedding. I rage cleaned. By the time my apartment was spotless, my wine was gone, and I was elbow deep in an old box of family photos that I hadn't touched in years. That's when I started to see it. In every holiday picture, I was either standing at the edge or missing entirely. In the Carter family Christmas 2006 photo, I'm literally cropped out, only one sleeve of my sweater visible behind Lauren's head. In Lauren's graduation party shot, There's a balloon arch and a banner, and her three best friends holding up a sign that said she did it. I was the one who made the sign. I wasn't in the picture. At my own college graduation, one blurry photo of me, taken by a stranger, while my parents were apparently at brunch with Lauren. I found the timestamp on an old email. They didn't even lie about it. It wasn't just the wedding. The wedding was just the latest episode in a long-running show called Emily, adjacent to the family. And when I realized that, I lost it. Not a scream or a sob. Just this cold internal click, like a drawer sliding shut. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. It was math. Cost-benefit analysis. What did I gain by keeping the peace? What had I ever actually received for being the good sport? For laughing off insults? For clapping at every milestone that no one clapped for me? Nothing. Not respect. Not recognition. And now, not even a goddamn chair at the table. So I made a decision. If they were going to treat me like I didn't exist, like I was the weird ghost who haunted the background of family events, then maybe I'd haunt something that mattered to them. Like a wedding. And since I wasn't officially disinvited, just discouraged from attending, I was under no obligation to stay away. In fact, in Ohio, unless a venue is privately rented and your name is explicitly on a do not enter list, walking in isn't trespassing. I looked it up. Multiple times. With highlighter. I wasn't going to scream or flip a table. That would be satisfying but stupid. No. I wanted something smarter. Something precise. And that's when I remembered what Lauren said over dinner a few months ago, back when I was still in her inner circle, back when she still pretended I was important. We were at this overpriced tapas place, and she was on her third glass of Pinot, blathering about Jason's job in tech and how his family had a lot of money, but it's all, complicated. Crypto stuff. Trusts. Jason says they move it around for tax reasons. At the time, I was too focused on not gagging over a plate of cold octopus to pay much attention. But now? Now my brain latched onto it like a shark smelling blood. Weird money. Shady tax things. Trust funds. And I'm an accountant. Bingo. Let me clarify something. I'm not a forensic accountant. I don't spend my days combing through crime syndicate spreadsheets or tracking embezzlers through offshore shell core. I do taxes. For boring people. In Ohio. But I do them well. You spend 8 years in the same chair, building other people's financial scaffolding, and you start to notice patterns. Sloppy hands. Bad paper trails. Dumb arrogance. Especially among men who've never had to answer for their money. Jason Montgomery practically had "Audit Me" tattooed on his LinkedIn profile. I started small, basic search stuff. First, I ran a quick search through the Ohio Secretary of State Business Filings database. Then I expanded. A few LLCs popped up with Jason's name or variation: JM Holdings, JLM Properties, Buckeye Digital Systems. Normal names. But when I dug into the addresses listed on the registrations, my eyebrows lifted. One of them led to a UPS store. Another? A burned-out property in Toledo that's still marked as under tax lien review. I even called the listed number pretending to be a vendor. No answer. No voicemail. I cross-checked the LLCs with federal tax liens. Bingo. One of them had a lien filed for nearly $80,000 in unpaid taxes, flagged for improper use of PPP funds during the pandemic. I pulled the case number and traced it to a slow-moving Department of Justice investigation. Not high-profile, not flashy, but active. Now, here's where it gets spicy. That same LLC had been listed as the employer on Jason's mortgage application, which I pulled from the county recorder's office because, surprise, it's public record if you know where to look. Why does that matter? Because misrepresenting income on a mortgage is fraud. Straight up, no gray area. Go directly to felony court fraud. And his big, Beautiful $1.2 million Dublin home built on it. You think someone like Jason was smart enough to cover his tracks? Please. The man once bragged to me about using a fake name on a dating app just for fun. Subtlety is not his kink. I compiled everything into a file. I didn't even need a burner account. I had facts. Publicly sourced, verifiable facts. Screenshots. PDFs. Business registration numbers. Tax lien filings. IRS case references. And here's the beautiful part. Jason didn't know I knew anything. The family didn't even know I was thinking about attending the wedding. I'd been erased, remember? I was the odd one. The invisible one. Ghosts don't crash parties. They haunt them. I thought about sending the file to Lauren. But no, she'd defend him. Cry, deny, rationalize. Love does that. No, if I wanted this to land where it hurt, I had to aim higher. Enter Heather Montgomery, Jason's mother. She's the kind of woman who puts wife, mother, philanthropist in her Instagram bio and posts $400 floral centerpieces with captions about gratitude. Obsessed with legacy. Optics. Her name is on 3 local hospital donor walls and 1 junior league board. Her worst nightmare? Scandal. I printed the dossier on ivory linen paper, clipped it all into a crisp folder, and addressed it with calligraphy-level care. Mrs. Heather Montgomery. No return address. No note. Just truth. Gift-wrapped. I dropped it in the mailbox at 2:08 p.m. on a Tuesday. And then I waited. The worst part of revenge isn't the act. It's the waiting. Once that envelope left my hand, there was nothing left to do but let it travel. Just like every apology I never got, every birthday they forgot, every time they said, "Emily, don't make it about you." I imagined the timeline. Day 1. The mail hits the Montgomerys' perfectly manicured porch in their tax-avoiding suburban castle. Day 2. Heather opens it in her all-white kitchen with a matcha latte and sees Jason's name linked to a government investigation. Day 3. Chaos. Screaming. Gin. Probably a call to the family lawyer. Maybe even a therapist. Day 4. Damage control. They circle the wagons. But what I got instead was nothing. 3 days passed. Then 5. Then 10. Lauren's Instagram was still a beige blur of final touches and bridal boot camp, and the occasional filtered shot of Jason holding her Pomeranian like a hostage. No cracks. No panic. Not even a whisper. I'd begun to think maybe it had fizzled. Maybe Heather saw the file and buried it. Maybe she already knew and decided a little white-collar felony was worth the perfect wedding album. And then, on a sleepy Wednesday afternoon, I got the text. It was from my dad. A man who treats communication the way he treats dental floss, rarely and with visible resentment. Emily, don't come to the wedding. You've done enough. No context. No emojis. Not even a love, Dad at the end. I laughed so hard I dropped my pen. That single sentence told me everything I needed to know. They got the envelope. Someone had read it. Probably Heather, possibly Jason, but definitely not Lauren. If she had, I'd have gotten a monsoon of screaming texts with her name in all caps and 14 exclamation points. No, they hadn't told her. They were still trying to contain the fire, treating me like a dirty secret who dropped a match in the ballroom. That's when the calls started. First Mom. Straight to voicemail. Then Lauren, finally, left a message. Emily, I heard you did something really uncool. I'm trying to be calm, but honestly, I don't get why you're so jealous. This is my wedding. My one day. Please don't ruin it. Please. Don't show up. For once, can you not make everything about you? I listened to that voicemail twice. Not because it hurt, it didn't. It confirmed what I already knew. In Lauren's world, I wasn't a person. I was a prop. A mirror that made her look shinier when she stood next to me. But I wasn't jealous. I was calm, collected, and I was going to be there. Because despite everything, I never got a formal disinvitation. Legally, that wedding was still a public event at a venue with no posted restrictions. And I had the RSVP receipt to prove it. Let them try to throw me out. The question wasn't whether I'd show up. It was whether the wedding would survive it. The wedding was at Willow Crest Winery, just outside Columbus. The kind of place with wrought iron gates, white stone fountains, and enough manicured hedges to make Versailles feel underdressed. I'd been there once before for a client's retirement party and remembered two things. The parking lot is a nightmare, and nobody asks questions if you walk in like you belong. I wore navy blue. Not black, because that's too obvious. Not floral, because that screams forgiving cousin. Navy. Clean. Sharp. My hair was up, makeup was minimal, but professional. If someone mistook me for a high-end event planner, that was fine with me. I arrived 45 minutes early, parked like a guest, and walked in through the side entrance used by vendors. The staff were too busy arranging hydrangeas to question me. I slipped past a tray of champagne flutes, nodded to the coordinator, and found a quiet spot near the back of the ceremony area. They'd gone all out. Rows of white chairs with satin bows, hanging mason jars with fairy lights, and a live string quartet playing Coldplay like it was Bach. I could smell money in the air, old perfume, polished silver, the kind of cash that's never folded. I recognized Jason's mother, Heather, near the altar, wearing what looked like a $5,000 suit and an expression like she had just swallowed battery acid. She was talking to Jason. Whispering, really. Her jaw tight. His shoulders stiff. His neck blotchy. Good. Lauren hadn't come out yet. The bridesmaids were lining up at the far end, all matching in their blush dresses. My replacement, whoever she was, stood where I should have been. I scanned her face, didn't recognize her. Probably one of those peripheral friends that only surface when you're engaged. The type you bond with over cake tastings and then never speak to again. The music swelled. Guests stood. The doors at the back opened. Lauren stepped into view. And yes, she looked beautiful. Of course she did. That wasn't the point. She beamed down the aisle, her arm looped through our father's, unaware of the tension coiling just feet from the altar. She didn't notice Jason's hands shaking as he wiped sweat from his brow. She didn't see Heather fidgeting with her clutch like it was a grenade about to go off. She only had eyes for the future. The officiant welcomed everyone, thanked them for gathering, and asked if there were any objections to the marriage. And that's when it happened. Heather Montgomery stood up. At first, everyone thought she was having a medical episode. A murmur swept through the crowd. Jason looked like he was about to pass out. Heather turned to the guests and said, loudly, clearly, "I'm sorry, but I cannot, in good conscience, allow the ceremony to continue." Gasps. Literal gasps. Lauren froze mid-breath. Jason muttered her name like a warning. Heather reached into her clutch and pulled out my dossier. She held it up like it was scripture. Jason has committed fraud, multiple counts, mortgage misrepresentation, misused pandemic relief funds, and an ongoing investigation with the Department of Justice. I will not see my family's name dragged into this. The silence was suffocating. Then came the shouting. Lauren turned on Jason, demanding answers. He stammered. He lied badly. She asked him, screamed at him, if it was true. He said something about it's complicated and a misunderstanding. Then she slapped him. I don't know if it was the sound of her palm or the sound of her trust breaking that echoed louder. People started standing. The officiant tried to regain control. But it was done. The wedding was over. And me? I slipped out the way I came in. Silent. Unseen. Just like they'd always wanted me. I spent the evening in a dive bar 3 towns over, drinking an overpriced whiskey sour and watching the Browns lose their lead in the final quarter. There was something poetic about it: Ohio football, cheap liquor, and a ruined wedding in my rearview mirror. My phone buzzed on the sticky bar top. Once, then again. Then it didn't stop. The family group chat was vibrating like a dying animal. 17 unread messages. Missed calls from my mother, my father, Lauren. One from an unknown number I assumed was Jason, but it could have just as easily been a crisis PR firm. I didn't open any of them. Not yet. Instead, I ordered another drink and let myself breathe. It wasn't triumph I felt. Not quite. It was release. A quiet uncurling of something inside me that had been knotted for years. Like I'd been holding my breath since childhood and had finally exhaled. Not for applause. Not even for revenge, really. Just for the first moment of peace I'd felt around my family since I was old enough to realize I'd never really belonged. The next morning, I powered through the texts. Some highlights. Mom, what did you do? Heather is threatening to sue. Do you understand what you've caused? Dad, you've always been jealous. This was Lauren's day. You destroyed it. Lauren, you are dead to me. Don't ever contact me again. I mean it. You've always hated me and now I finally see it. My fingers hovered over her message. I reread it 3 times. Dead to me. A strange thing happens when someone tells you you're dead to them. You expect devastation. You expect to fall apart. But what I felt was lighter. Because in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't dead. I was free. Let's talk about Lauren for a second. She'd spent our entire lives demanding center stage. Birthday cakes shaped like Disney princesses. Piano recitals that required full attendance. Engagement dinners with professionally printed seating charts. Every event revolved around her gravitational pull, and the rest of us orbited quietly, dutifully, pretending we didn't see the black hole behind her smile. She was never expected to give. Just sparkle. I was expected to carry. Now that the spotlight was gone, she was flailing. Unmoored. And furious. I don't know exactly what happened after Heather dropped the bomb at the altar. Whether Jason confessed or tried to lie his way out. Whether the DOJ finally rang their doorbell or if Heather simply bulldozed the marriage with her signature brand of elegant rage. But I know this. The wedding was called off. The venue sent out an email a day later offering partial refunds to guests. And the Montgomery family began a quiet but immediate retreat from public life. Their Instagram accounts went private. Their donation plaques started vanishing from local gala programs. Jason's startup website redirected to an error page by Friday. I didn't hear from Lauren again for 3 months. When she finally texted, it wasn't to apologize. Of course not. It just said, "Was this really worth it to you?" I stared at my screen for a full minute before replying. Yes. In the weeks after the wedding that wasn't, my life was eerily quiet. No screaming voicemails. No door-slamming ambushes. No sudden appearances at my apartment with casseroles and passive-aggressive lectures about what family means. Just nothing. Like they'd all made a pact to pretend I didn't exist. Again. But this time, I wasn't in exile. I'd walked away. And that changed everything. The only sound in my apartment most days was the quiet tick of the wall clock and the occasional thump from the upstairs neighbor who, I swear to God, was training for competitive furniture moving. I cleaned. I reorganized. I threw out old birthday cards from Lauren that said things like "Love you, sis," in her perfect loopy handwriting written with all the warmth of a tax form. I deleted the shared Google Calendar invite labeled "Lauren's Bridal Events," mandatory. Then I sat down with a cup of coffee and finally answered the one email that had come in during the chaos. It was from Carrie, Jason's ex. The subject line was short: I saw what happened. The body? Just 2 sentences. He did the same thing to me. I tried to warn Lauren. She blocked me. Thank you for saying what no one else would. I stared at those words longer than I should have. See, Carrie had messaged me once back when Lauren and Jason first got engaged. She'd sent a polite DM saying something about red flags and please look out for your sister. I'd shown it to Lauren at the time, expecting her to take it seriously. Instead, she laughed, called Carrie bitter and obsessed. Then she blocked her and posted a photo of Jason holding a ring box with the caption, "He chose me." Ring, okay? Yes, that one had emojis. It haunts me. And here was Carrie, still trying to be decent. Still offering quiet support, even after being dismissed. I replied, "I'm sorry she treated you that way. You deserved better too." She responded an hour later. "Maybe someday we grab a drink and trade war stories." I smiled. Not out of schadenfreude, but because for the first time, I wasn't alone in the aftermath. We were women who saw the warning signs, who weren't blinded by the sparkle, and who, when pushed, fought back. A few days later, I ran into my mother at the grocery store. We locked eyes near the avocados of all places. She looked tired. Not makeup-free, but diminished somehow. Like a house with the lights still on but nobody inside. "Emily," she said, cautious. I said nothing, just raised an eyebrow. She tried again. We didn't expect things to go so far." I shrugged. I didn't expect to be erased from my sister's life because I didn't match a color palette. We all had surprises. She flinched at that. Not dramatically. Just a tiny muscle twitch in her cheek. Then she said it. The thing I'd waited 29 years to hear. We were wrong. But it came too late. Like apologizing to the fire after the house has burned down. I nodded, grabbed my groceries, and left her standing in produce like a woman who just realized the daughter she buried in silence now had the final word. 3 weeks after the wedding that turned into a public autopsy, I got a formal envelope in the mail. Not from the Montgomerys. Not from a lawyer. From Lauren. It was a single page. Heavy cardstock. Thick enough to stop a bullet or, in this case, absorb an ego. The header was embossed. Notice of family boundary agreement. That's right. My sister sent me a cease and desist, dressed up as a love letter from a cult. It wasn't legally binding. I know that. She knows that. But it didn't matter. The message was clear. You humiliated me. You told the truth when it was inconvenient. And now I need to control the narrative again. The letter outlined, in prim, passive-aggressive language, that she wished to take a break from sibling communication to heal from recent events and would appreciate my cooperation in maintaining a respectful distance. There was also a bullet point list. My favorite was, "Do not speak of the wedding in any public forum, private forum, or online thread." As if I was about to start a TikTok series titled Bridezilla Breakdown, How I Ruined a $50,000 Wedding in One Envelope. Tempting. Instead, I folded the letter, stuck it in my filing cabinet under miscellaneous bullshit, and poured myself a cup of coffee. I looked out at the gray November sky over my apartment balcony, the wind just beginning to pull at the last of the leaves. And I felt good. Not vengeful. Not smug. Just clean. Let me tell you something about estrangement. It doesn't always look like slamming doors and shouting matches. Sometimes it's paperwork. Sometimes it's a quiet understanding that the person you're supposed to love unconditionally has finally put a price tag on what you're allowed to be. Lauren wanted a curated world. She got one. She was surrounded by people who said yes, wore the right shades of mauve, and clinked champagne glasses with perfect French manicures. And when one person, me, refused to hold the mirror anymore, she shattered. You know what happens after a clean cut? You stop bleeding. Thanksgiving came and went. No invite. No texts. Not even a group chain about who was bringing the rolls. That hurt a little more than I expected, not because I missed them, but because I realized I used to beg for scraps of connection. I used to be the one sending follow-up texts. Do you want me to bring wine or dessert? Can I come early to help? Should I pick up Nana? This year, I made my own plans. I cooked dinner for 2 friends, real ones, the kind you ask how your day is and actually wait for the answer. We had cornbread stuffing, a rotisserie chicken from Whole Foods. I refused to touch raw turkey, and 3 bottles of wine. After dessert, we played board games and laughed until my face hurt. At one point, Maya, my best friend, asked, "Do you ever wish you could just go back and undo it? Like, stop yourself from mailing that folder." I paused, then said if I could go back, I'd send it sooner. And I'd send a copy to the caterer. We laughed until I cried. Happy tears, for once. The dining table in my apartment isn't fancy. Mid-century modern, solid oak, second-hand from a woman who cried a little when I handed her the cash because it was the first thing she bought after her divorce. I told her I'd take good care of it. And I have. There are 6 chairs. No assigned seating. No hierarchy. Everyone's equal here. It's December now. Christmas music has started its slow invasion of every store I enter, and my inbox is full of holiday promotions promising joy if I'll just spend $99.95 on a vibrating face roller. My parents haven't reached out. Not even a passive-aggressive group text. No, let's be civil for the holidays. No guilt-slicked invitations. No desperate olive branches. Lauren, true to form, has gone dark. Her Instagram has turned into a sad carousel of iced coffee and mental health day quotes in muted beige. Jason, last I heard, was taking time to realign. That's rich, considering he may end up realigning in federal court. Meanwhile, I've been busy. Busy living. I hosted my first Friendsgiving. 8 people showed up, including Carrie, the ex who turned out to be, ironically, the most genuine friend to emerge from this mess. She brought homemade pie. Not store-bought. Not defrosted. Made. With a crust that flaked like a dream. My friend Maya toasted me, holding up a mismatched wine glass with chipped gold trim and said, to Emily, "The only woman I know who can ruin a wedding and build a better family in the same month." We laughed, clinked glasses, and passed stuffing. There was no kids' table. No plastic chairs shoved in a corner. Everyone sat together. Every voice was heard. I realized, mid-meal, that I hadn't once thought about impressing anyone. Not curating. Not shrinking. Not deflecting praise with an awkward joke. Just being seen. Later that week, I stood in my living room staring at a framed photo on the wall. It used to be one of Lauren and me at the zoo, holding cotton candy and smiling like everything in our world was equal. I took it down and replaced it with a photo from that Friendsgiving night. Me, standing in my kitchen, laughing, glass of wine in hand, surrounded by people who chose to be there. I looked happy. Not performative happy. Not smile, your mom's taking a picture happy. Real. For the first time in my life, I had built a space where I didn't have to fight for a chair. I'd bought the table. I set it. I invited people who brought more than their appetite. They brought respect, stories, and warmth. This isn't about revenge anymore. Not really. It's about rewriting the rules. No more folding chairs in the corner. No more being cropped out of the frame. No more begging for scraps of decency from people who only know how to perform love when there's an audience. I finally understand. You don't need a big family to feel whole. You just need a table where no one has to earn their place. It's been a year, one whole cycle around the sun since I was told, by my own mother, that I didn't fit the aesthetic of my sister's wedding. I still remember how my hands shook on the steering wheel that day, the way the sky looked a little too bright as I pulled out of that Kroger parking lot. Like the universe had the nerve to keep going as if something fundamental hadn't just broken inside me. Now I barely recognize that woman. This morning, I woke up in my apartment, the one with the sun-soaked kitchen and the table I bought with my own money and purpose. I drank coffee from my favorite chipped mug and watched the light hit the wall where my new photos live. Photos of people who show up. Friends, colleagues, chosen family. People who ask how I'm doing and actually care about the answer. The old photos are gone. Not burned. I'm not that dramatic, but boxed and pushed to the back of a closet I don't open often. They serve their purpose. They reminded me how small I was willing to make myself for the illusion of love, and how quickly that love evaporated the moment I made myself inconvenient. It's funny, isn't it? All my life, I thought survival meant being quiet, smiling when ignored, laughing off humiliation with a joke, giving the benefit of the doubt so often I nearly bankrupted myself. Turns out, real growth came when I stopped asking for a seat at someone else's table and built my own damn dining room. I didn't burn bridges. I let them rot. Because here's the truth they never tell you in those syrupy family sitcoms. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is stop knocking on the door of people who lock it behind you. Last week, I got another text from Lauren. It had been months, radio silence, since the full legal boundary agreement she mailed like a monarch issuing a royal decree. This one just said, "So, are you ever going to forgive me?" I stared at the message for a long time. She wanted forgiveness like a refund, as if it were a customer service transaction. She didn't ask how I was, didn't acknowledge what she did. Just asked if I was done being upset so we could return to the version of reality where I shut up and she sparkled. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Some people don't want reconciliation. They want reset. They want to erase your reaction so they can keep doing what they did. And I'm not giving her that. Because forgiveness isn't about what she needs. It's about what I need. And what I need is peace. So I closed the message, turned off my phone, and went outside, into the air, into the light. The world didn't look too bright this time. It looked possible.